chapter 22, starting it. It's called Salvation in the Holy Relationship. And it's a little bit of a capstone when it comes to this topic. And we're going to talk about reason, but this is not a course or whatever right now on reason. It's about holy relationships. So we'll pick it back up here in chapter 22 in the Blue Book. And it starts out to me very strangely. It says, "Take pity on yourself, so long enslaved." Now, to me, that sentence looks weird. All along, Jesus is talking about joining with your brother, and all of a sudden, he sounded like Mr. T from Rocky. Take pity on yourself. Remember Mr. T, I pity the fool. Take pity on yourself, so long enslaved. It doesn't make sense. It sounds like a victimization mentality. So, one thing I would recommend, whenever you read in whatever version you're in, something that sounds a little weird, doesn't make sense, go back to the original, to the text or to the notes or whatever you have access to, one of the earlier editions, and see what it says. In this particular case, it says in the original, "Take pity on yourselves," plural, "so long enslaved." Now that word pity, there's a couple different definitions. And one of the things about words in the course is Jesus has his own definitions for things. And not only that, because Spirit cannot be limited, even in his own definitions, he's not going to limit himself to that definition necessarily. So he may change, can't count on that he's talking about the same definition of a word in chapter 1 that he's talking about in chapter 30 or whatever. Because then you're locking him into an interpretation. And he's not going to do that. In fact, if you look at the text, early on, within the first things that he gave to Helen, he was saying, if you look in Webster's dictionary, if you look at the third definition down of this word, is what I'm talking about. So, take pity can mean to just, pity the fool. Look at that poor thing. Or look at poor old me. But there's another definition of it, and that is to relieve. Take pity means not only notice that there's a need to relieve the person of the need. Well, what is the need? The need is that we've enslaved ourselves. So take pity on yourselves, so long enslaved. Rejoice, whom God hath joined, have come together, and need no longer look on sin apart. Now we're looking at reason or logic, and the Holy Spirit is going to give us, and Jesus is going to give us his logic or his reason or our reason, the reason of Christ, because we made up our own logic system, our own reasoning. You taught yourself your own reasoning. No one taught you it. You taught it yourself. You may have used others to teach it to you, but you taught it to yourself. So everyone has their own reasoning. That's why you hear the witness and they say, I was driving behind the guy and then he just turned left and drove off the cliff. That didn't make any sense. How did he do that? Well, it made sense to him. And that's all that matters in this separated world. If it makes sense to me, then that's my reason. And if that's my thought, then it's going to affect my actions, my outlook, my perception, my purview. All right, so notice here he says, and need no longer look on sin apart. No two can look on sin together, for they could never see it in the same place and time. Sin is a strictly individual perception. So let's stop right in the middle of a sentence. Are you telling me, Jesus, that me and my partner here that's listening to me can't look on Adolf Hitler and see sin together and agree that we're seeing the same thing? No, you cannot. Sin is a strictly individual perception, seen in the other, yet believed by each to be within himself. Okay, this is the whole idea of perception and projection. So if you've projected sin, and I'm looking at Adolf Hitler as my projection, and you are also looking at Adolf Hitler as a projection, the projection is from your mind, because you can only be seeing and only projecting what you believe to be within yourself, within your own mind. So no two people can look on sin the same. That's why there's so much disagreement about everything. Our favorite enemy or evil person is Adolf Hitler. Anybody brings him up, it's either an attack or sometimes you'll hear a defense. Remember, Trump said, well, he knew how to run his country or something like that. So it just genders more attack. It's because everybody's going to see the person the way they want to see him based on the way they see themselves. And each one seems to make a different error, and one the other cannot understand. Brother, it is the same, made by the same, and forgiven for its maker in the same way. So, it has to come back to oneness. The whole idea of sin, individual belief in sin, perception and projection, is a way of breaking free from oneness or true joining of mind. That is the means we have been utilizing to do it. So it's not true. Sameness is true. And that's why we're talking about the holy relationship. So he comes back to it. The holiness of your relationship forgives you and your brother, undoing the effects of what you both believed and saw, again, individually. And with their going is the need for sin gone with them. Why is the need for sin gone with them? Because the purpose for sin is to separate. The purpose for recognizing jointness, oneness, joining, is to return to your reality of oneness. Therefore, there would be no need for sin. And if there's no need for sin, there's no longer need for individual perception and belief and faith, and then the projection and seeing involved in this process of mental gymnastics that we put into place. Paragraph 2. Who has need for sin? Only the lonely and alone who see their brothers different from themselves. It is this difference, seen but not real, that makes the need for sin, not real but seen, seem justified. Okay, so if we want to hold on to this idea of sin and everything that goes with it, then we must hold on to the idea of separateness and difference. Because what would it be if we knew we were all the same? Then I would know already that there's no sense to have sin. Therefore, there would be no sense or need to have difference, because I already know that's not real. Sameness, the equality of the sonship, is real. So there's no more need for sin. If I can do away with the idea of difference, I do away with the idea of the need for sin. And all this would be real if sin were so. For an unholy relationship is based on differences, where each one thinks the other has what he has not. Okay, so there is the purpose for difference. The purpose for difference is to differentiate in the thought of lack, to substantiate and verify the thought of lack. So you are or have something I am or have not. They come together, each to complete himself and rob the other. This is the inherent substance of the unholy relationship or special relationship. It is, I have lack, I recognize that you have something I do not, and I want it, and I am going to steal it. They stay until they think that there's nothing left to steal, and then move on. Wow. Can you be honest enough with yourself to see that that's what every relationship we've ever had, unless it's been exchanged for a holy relationship, is exactly that? There are communities here in the United States where the idea of theft being wrong has almost totally gone because it's simply a mindset. This whole idea, this whole world is a theft. It's a theft of the creation of the Father and a substitution of it. So the whole thing is theft. The whole thing is fraud. So once a community begins to recognize that the whole thing's like this, so there's no sense in differentiating, then you steal from me, so I'm going to steal from you. So everything becomes take, take, take. I was in law enforcement, and I remember one time we had a drug search. A package of drugs had been sent to a house. We went in to do the search warrant, and there was nothing in the house. We're like, what happened here? And they said, well, we got robbed. They call it robbed, but it's not really robbery, it's burglary. We were gone last night, and somebody came and took all our stuff. Well, it wasn't about 20 minutes later, somebody wanted to come from across the street and find out what's going on with all these cops over here. So they come knocked on the door, and they said, hey, man, I heard you've been robbed over here. And they were wearing all of their clothes. That's how insane, once the breakdown or realization is that this entire thing is robbery, it doesn't matter anymore. But it is a revelation. It is an unveiling of the thought and what it is. It's an entire fraud. There are no lies in the unnatural world because the whole thing is a lie. So how are you going to differentiate what one lie is as opposed to the other? Okay, so they stay until they think there's nothing left to steal and then move on. And so they wander through a world of strangers, unlike themselves, living with their bodies, perhaps under a common roof that shelters neither, in the same room, and yet a world apart. This isn't necessarily talking about just before the separation or divorce state of a romantic relationship or marriage. This is talking about all your relationships. You are not sheltered. You believe you are, but you're not. You're in the same room, but you're a world apart. The idea of being alone. I need to be alone. I want my space. I want my secret world. And you think about, even in projection and form, how crazy that is. I'm going upstairs to my place. I'm going upstairs to get away from you. And then we go in a room upstairs, and it's right above the room they're in. And anybody looking from 3D space would know, although you think you are in such a private place and alone and safe, your feet are like 4 feet or 3 feet from the person's head down below you that you think you're separated from. Or you think about a small home and I'm going to my room. And you pop in your bed and you think you're all safe and comfortable, not realizing that it's a 6-inch wall, and on the other side is the living room, and 3 feet into that living room are the people you think you've just separated yourself from. It's just total insanity. A world apart. You live together, but don't get on my side of the bed. I'll even sleep with you, but don't get on my side of the bed. We've all been there. Paragraph 3. A holy relationship starts from a different premise. Each one has looked within and seen no lack. Accepting his completion, he would extend it by joining with another, whole as himself. He sees no difference between these selves, for differences are only of the body. Therefore he looks on nothing he would take. He denies not his own reality, because it is the truth. Just under heaven does he stand, but close enough not to return to earth. So this is a process. It is a realization, and we know that it's based in changing the goal of the relationship and allowing the Holy Spirit to turn us around 180 degrees from where the goal was heading, which was sin, which we've been describing, and now the goal is holiness. Now, once you get to a place where you have an understanding of this, you're not returning to earth. You're so close to heaven and your reality that you can't return to earth, to that unholy thing again. It's impossible. You ain't going there because you can't go there. Thank God. Just under heaven does he stand, but close enough not to return to earth. For this relationship has heaven's holiness. How far from home can a relationship so like to heaven be? So our holy relationships, once properly seen, become a reflection of heaven and our home that is so close to our home that we know it can't be far. It's just a tweak of our awareness. See, that's why it's such a peaceful place to be in the real world mentality in holy relationships, is because you recognize, I may not be seeing this exactly perfectly yet, but I'm just a tweak off. I'm just a tweak off. Think what a holy relationship can teach. Here is belief in differences undone. Here is the faith in differences shifted to sameness. Now remember, last time we talked about faith and belief and either seeing or vision. So now our faith, our confidence, our assurance is now shifted to sameness. I know you're the same as I am. I know you're the Holy Son of God. I know you are in perfect relationship with your Father. And you are the universe. And I'm in the Father. So I am in perfect relationship with you. We have perfect communion and communication. And here is sight of differences transformed to vision. Reason, this is Holy Spirit reason, Jesus reason, now can lead you and your brother to the logical conclusion of your union. It begins to make sense. I know I'm one with you. I have allowed reason to logically conclude that I am one with you, as much as I was one with this appearance that appeared to be Adolf Hitler. It's just sons having a dream, trying to be what they are not. But I'm not buying it anymore. I don't buy your dream. I'm not affected by your dream. I only see your reality. Now, everything we talked about, the law of creation, it goes right on here. It must extend as you extended when you and he joined. In other words, once you recognize reality in the law of creation, in the law of love, then you recognize that this isn't for me. This isn't to take pity on me. And it's not to take just pity on me and you. It's to take pity on all those who have suffered or appeared to suffer in a nightmare. And so it must be extended. That's the only way you could have understood the holy relationship, is to know we got to extend this to everybody because we're all the same. It must reach out beyond itself as you reached out beyond the body to let you and your brother be joined. We've talked about the body in depth. You have to release the thought of the body, to release the thought of a special relationship, to release the past, and to enjoy the fruits of this holy relationship. And now the sameness that you saw extends and finally removes all sense of differences, so that the sameness that lies beneath them all becomes apparent. Here is the golden circle where you recognize the Son of God, for what is born into a holy relationship can never end. So this reaches back to, I think it was in chapter 21 where we talked about the golden circle of light, that you begin to say, okay, here's the process. I believed that you are a mind trapped in a body, but I reject that. I recognize that you are a mind projecting a body, and we are one mind. There's no limit to your mind. You are the creation of God, therefore you are light. Therefore you are a great ray. Therefore, in this time of Christmas, you are a star placed in the heaven of God's thoughts, but you are not alone. Your rays reach to every other star that's in the heaven, all the sons of God. So we begin to see this golden circle of light. And a circle, that term tells us we see a circle, which means there's an inside the circle and an outside the circle. And in this golden light inside the circle, the more you look at it, the more you realize and watch as the circumference of the circle gets bigger and bigger until it goes so far away from your thinking that you realize that there can never be an end to the circle. The golden circle without end, which is the thought of God, which is the mind of God, which is the heaven, which is true reality. And so that is a wonderful section